We like to think that if we know the truth, we'll do better. That knowledge leads to clarity, and clarity leads to change. But what if the truth only tightens the chain? What if knowing what's right doesn't stop us from doing what's wrong, especially when the wrong is written into our blood? And then there are stories that refuses to let us look away. Stories where the heroes aren't chosen, but forced into spotlight by the sin of the people who raised them. Where rebellion isn't just a phase, it's survival. The kind of story where running away feels like the only way to stay sane, until even that begins to rot. In this world, morality is a mirror, one cracked by a legacy and sealed with love. Being good isn't about what you fight against, but how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice to win. And in Marvel's Runaways, the fight isn't just against villains, it's against inheritance, against the fear the darkness we condemn might already live inside us. So let's confront the thing this story never lets us forget, that no matter how far we ran, we don't always escape what made us. Chapter 1, The Weight of Inherited Evil. The question of nature versus nurture, the question of whether that feeling of wrongdoing we commit is passed down through blood or learned from the environment we grow up in, becomes the central question we can ask of the Runaways. All of the Runaways have parents who are part of a cult. These parents smiled in public, praised for the good they were accomplishing through philanthropy, while in the shadows, they had made a deal with an alien force. That deal forced them into sacrificing people, inventing futuristic technologies with questionable use, and most importantly, silencing anyone in the group who dares to question or expose them, no matter how minor the dissent. Now the focus shifts to their children, the Runaways themselves, who have chosen to take them down. But the real question becomes, how far are they willing to go? These kids share the same blood as those who commits all the wrongdoings, and the actions they take, the necessities they face, all reflect the dark mirror. The Runaways, the presumed heroes of the narrative, begins to act in ways eerily similar to their parents, the so-called antagonists. Yes, the kids aren't inherently marked by sin. They faced tragedies. One lost a parent, another a sister. By the time the story begins, their bonds are fractured. But when they uncover the truth and become the Runaways, they're pushed to take actions that, while well-intentioned from their perspective, can also be seen as acts of self-interest. That's the blurred line they're forced to walk. The weight of their parents' sin will always follow them. With superpowers or technical genius at their disposal, they're capable of causing just as much damage to their community, if not more. It's a moral imperative they can't escape. Even if they ran from their parents, they didn't run from the legacy. And being forced to confront and accept it turns each of them into morally compromised beings in a war against evil. Chapter 2, Found Family versus Blood Ties. What does family mean? Yes, there are a type of families you can't truly recreate, the one defined by blood, the ties that binds one another through lineage. But then, there's something even stronger, the kind of family that isn't born but built. It's forged through real connections and mutual understanding with people you genuinely get along with. That's what the Runaways is. It's a group of kids who had known each other since they were young, only because their parents were connected through a shady charity group. Over time, their bond faded, and their relationship became almost non-existent as they grew older. But then, everything changed. They were pulled back into each other's lives after uncovering the dark truth about their parents. The blood bond they shared with their families was strong, but the story isn't just about running away. It's about confronting the issues rooted in their own families. Through that confrontation, they discover something deeper, a shared tragedy that binds them, a collective desire not to follow in their parents' footsteps. Instead, they try to make a difference, to make amends for the wrongs committed by the people who raised them. In doing so, they find each other. The comfort of friendship eventually becomes something more, an actual family. The thin, frayed line of resistance and loyalty is what makes each of their journeys so compelling. Yes, they want to take down their parents, but before they learned the truth, that their parents were part of a cult sacrificing people, they had a life. It may not have been perfect, but it was still a family. To walk away from that, to choose discomfort, heartbreak, and tragedy over the comforts of blood ties, that's what it means to be a runaway. A found family born through truth and pain, one that still faces all the struggles any family would. And in the end, that doesn't matter, because family can be something you're born into, or something you choose. Chapter 3, Teen Rebellion reframed as heroism. When we were teenagers, we've all been through it. The phase in life where all you wanted to do is blur the line between being a kid and becoming an adult. You push boundaries, act out, trying to feel older than you are. But sometimes that need to grow up comes faster than expected. Sometimes crossing that line isn't about rebellion against authority, it becomes the start of something deeper, something more adult. The Runaways, a group of teenagers, aren't the typical type of hero you would call during a crisis. Usually, you'd want the Avengers, or if you're hopping universes, maybe the Justice League. But that's exactly why the story hits differently. At first glance, their action seems like pure teenage rebellion. The way they stumbled upon their parents' secret lives started just like that, raiding liquor cabinets, trying to feel grown up, only to find a hidden door leading to a ritual basement. It's almost cliche. It could have been any teen in a luxury home filled with secrets, literally hiding in the walls. And once they found that secret, they couldn't stop digging. They invaded their parents' privacy, hunting for proof, something to confirm guilt or innocence. They even launched their own covert mission during a party hosted by their parents, with Alex using his hacking skills to break through the digital firewalls. It's the kind of behavior we forgive easily because after all, they're the protagonists. They're just trying to do the right thing, even if it looks like rebellion. But really, isn't that what most of our teenage years were? Maybe we didn't go as far or uncover world-shattering secrets, but the urge to challenge authority, to find our own truth, it's universal. Eventually, these teams became a team. Their rebellion evolves into a movement. Each member begins to define who they want to be, either embracing the darkness they inherited or choose to fight against it. And in that transformation, they become more than rebellious kids. They become actual heroes, worthy of the title. That's what makes the Runaways feel so different. It's not just a superhero origin story. It's a twisted, poignant evolution of teenage rebellion into something with purpose, power, and identity. Chapter 4. Who gets to save the world? Unfortunately, Pride and the Runaways, while seemingly on opposite ends of the fight between good and evil, aren't all that different. We're introduced to the idea that the Runaways, the children of Pride, are the good guys, while Pride itself stands firmly on the wrong side. But when viewed through a familiar lens, the dynamic starts to shift. All the Pride members ever wanted was to protect their children and leave behind a legacy they could be proud of. But even before they had the chance to build anything meaningful, they were corrupted by a force greater than themselves, a force that's been pulling the strings, blurring the moral line between the two groups. Their methods may clash, but the intentions aren't always as far apart as they seem. The Runaways will always remember the moment they first saw their parents performing a ritualistic sacrifice. As they dug deeper and uncovered more about the secret dealings and ruthless decisions Pride had made, even against their own, those moments became all they could see. So they fight. But through manipulation, misdirection, and the influence of villains on both sides begins to force the group towards a reluctant understanding. They might actually be stronger together. While the ideologies differ, fueled by deep-rooted biases, they are at their core all trying to do the right thing. The tragedy is that whenever Pride tries to do good or save the world, the fallout is often too costly. That's the only legacy the Runaways remembers. Pride has the intellect and ambition to achieve great things, but the Runaways have both the intelligence and the power to execute those visions more effectively. That's why the Runaways sees their parents not as allies, but as obstacles, flawed figures standing in the way of progress. And maybe they're right, but then again, who gets to decide that? As much as the Runaways wants to believe they're above reproach, they too have made selfish choices, betrayed one another, and acted in ways that serves their own interest over those of the group or any higher moral code. And that's the central question the show keeps pushing us to confront. Even though the title is Marvel's Runaways, the role of Pride, the parents, is just as pivotal in shaping who these young heroes become. Chapter 5. The Burden of Knowing the Truth. Knowing something. That is the essence of being forced to be free from the insular world you were built towards. Once you accept the truth, you become dangerous because you now know something you were never meant to know. That idea sits at the heart of the lives of the Runaways. They're a group of teenagers who are essentially scarred for life when they discover the charity organization their parents belonged to, something they always believed was just an image of goodness projected by the elites, was far more sinister than it appeared. It wasn't simply a facade, it was a cult, one that sacrificed people in order to revive a mythic figure named Jonah. Once the truth is uncovered, their lives are never the same. At first, they struggled to confirm that what they witnessed was truly evil, truly sinister. But the deeper they dig, the more information they uncover, until the inevitable truth emerges. Their parents are evil. Some of them try to deflect, or justify their parents' actions, hoping that what they now know is some kind of hoax. But truth, like a radioactive superweapon, forces confrontation. They're compelled to see what they witnessed for what it really was, and to do something about it, even if that means going on the run. This is why they're the Runaways, not simply because comic writers labeled them as heroes on the run trying to stop their parents, but because there's a deeper meaning behind the name. It is about running away from the life they knew, the insular world they grew up in, and being forced to confront the next chapter of their lives. In this new chapter, they must become heroes in their own right, using their powers, running from the possibility of becoming mirrored version of their parents. Instead of joining them, they leave, trying to right their parents' sin and prove that this newfound family can make a difference, all because they're forced to confront the truth and ultimately to run away. Chapter 6, the ending. What were they actually running from? The Runaways. It doesn't feel like a pleasant team name that people want to be associated with. But the Runaways is much more than just what 6 kids on the run call themselves. It's about confronting the realities of what they thought they knew and what they now know. The most dangerous moment happens when the Runaways understand why they actually went on the run in the first place. Not because the truth is completely malicious, but because when they finally understand why, they begin to reflect and unleash the corruption of the very being they were trying to escape from. That is the true struggle the Runaways face. It's not the magistrate, or Jonah as he's more commonly known, or even a psychotic family. It's not Morgan Le Fay and her coven either. It's the truth they've all been avoiding ever since they went on the run. The fear that eventually they could become exactly what their parents represented. They thought they could expose their parents, and when they failed, they ran. But once they took that first step, each of them made a choice that slowly disrupted the balance of the group. Alex begins to explore the life he might have had if his father was still a gangster. Nico confronts the truth of her magical lineage. Carolina wrestles with the duality of being half alien, half human, and what that means when she's related by blood to the story's main villain. Everyone else bears the weight of family legacy. They love their parents, but they also can't love them too much, because if they do, the reason they ran in the first place starts to unravel. As much as we want the Runaways to be about a group of teenagers with unique abilities and tech running away from the legacy of evil and trying to defeat it, their actions after going on the run highlights a bigger message. Even in running away, they haven't truly outrun what they thought they were escaping. Time and time again, the Runaways, no matter the hardships, had to turn to their parents for help, even joining forces if it meant taking down a greater threat. In a way, they are the same. Each of the Runaways shares blood with the very enemy they thought they were escaping. And in that moment, when the Runaways try to do good, when their ideals take center stage, we start to see the cracks. Their good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes, but it's in the glimpse of the future where the real tragedy becomes clear. We don't just imagine what they might become, we're shown it. A future where the Runaways have become exactly what they swore they would never be. It's not subtle or symbolic. They mirror the villains they once fled, carrying out the same cycle of control, deception, and power. The line between them and their parents blur completely. They become the villain they swore they would never become, because they believed they had a higher, more righteous ideology than their parents. And that is the true irony of the story. Although that timeline is erased from existence, when one action saves Gert from being killed by Morgan Le Fay, it leaves the series with a bitter and tragic irony. Maybe that is who they were all along. And no matter how far or fast they run, that thing they're running from might still catch up and turn them into people we never imagined they could be. In the end, the most chilling truth isn't that the Runaways might become their parents. It's that deep down, they were never all that different to begin with.